from say Perpetual Change to Close to the Edge. There was quite a lot of different guitar work going on, and that was my work. That's my pleasure, you know, as well, to do that. I like to do it with total control over the guitar picture.
Close to the Edge wasn't just one side of one piece, it was a whole scenario, really, of three pieces. And And You and I is like a mini quintet sonata in a strange way. It has different movements which all go into each other. The object was of having a piece of music that was everything that the Yes critics hated us for and the Yes people, Yes fans loved us for, which was emotional. Received exactly the reaction that we thought it would be from the people who liked what we did. They thought we'd actually managed to achieve it really well within And You and I, and those who didn't like us just slated it to death.
What the group seemed to sense was that to keep everybody happy was to keep involving people as much as possible, encouraging this writing, encouraging ideas to be implanted amid somebody else's ideas. And that's really one of the hardest things to keep alive in a group.
The songs were always a problem. Nobody knew how to finish them. And to tell you the truth, with Close to the Edge, we got lucky. Because 3/4 of the way through the side of an LP, nobody knew what the conclusion to the music was. Least of all me.
We had to hang on to our ideas and develop them, arrange them, and try not to forget them the next day. Because sometimes we'd come in and say, God, what did we do to this? And many classic Yes bits of arranging have gone out the window. I mean, we actually forgot them. They were too intricate, too specialised, or one guy was the key to it, and he was the guy who didn't remember it the next day. So obviously we taped things, we started to have tapes of rehearsals going on all the time.
Lots of people all think that you're all kids on the block, like Bon Jovi or something, and you're all going to agree on the music. We only ever disagreed. We could never agree on anything, which is why the music came out so funny.
And that's what all the music did that came into the group. It went through this skewer, this cheese grater, you know, and by the time it came out the other side, it didn't look like quite what you'd planned, but there was everybody's input.
And when you get 5 people trying to do it, it can also become, you know, very confusing.
I mean, I'm saying after a while you start to notice that you write with this guy. And you start to notice, you know, and other people start saying, well, you better write with him because you wrote this song together. That is the end. That's goodbye to it just being that little intimacy.
And at times we got lucky, and sometimes the arrangements are better than others, you know. I always liked Siberian Katru, which I thought was a great arrangement. It's not one you have to really remember. There is a great logic to it, and it develops nicely, you know. We had a good day that day, or a good week that week.
Yes was the real real learning about the nuts and bolts of what we did. So we were all doing that together. We all came through together, and this can't happen again. And that's why it was so special. And we had Eddie, of course, where he was fresh to it all too, and it was all new to him. Making these records with us was new, and that newness was marvellous, you know. Before we all got too big for our boots, you know.
After the Close to the Edge album, Bill actually left, joining King Crimson.
It's all very well playing a bit, but you have to understand that you have to enlarge your vocabulary, and the way you do that is by fraternizing in music, in other musical situations. That's how you learn to develop things. So after Close to the Edge, all I could think of that I would be able to contribute to the next record would be Son of Close to the Edge. And I didn't really see any point in that.
He was lured away by Bob Fripp, as I said, because of Bill's sort of basic love of jazz. He was more interested in going that way.
So that position became available. I told Robert I'd like to do that. He said in his inimitable style, "I think you're about ready now, Bill," in his pretentious way, bless him. And I thought I'd do that. But of course that caused a bit of an uproar. And people now in America 20 years later still ask me why I left. But I left for good musical reasons.
And that was the first time that I saw a crack appear on the wall. And it was quite a big crack. And because of the style of the way that Bill played, a difficult position to fill. Eddie Offord, who was producing at the time, knew Alan very well, and I knew of Alan's playing.
They were rehearsing Siberian Khatru in order to do the Close to the Edge album. And Bill had left early that night, and the rest of the band were kind of stood there holding the instruments. And they said, well, Alan plays drums, so that was actually the first song I ever played with the band. I just sat in. I seemed to fit in and just naturally play it, and possibly that stuck in some people's minds.
But it just seemed quite a radical thing to change so far from one kind of drummer to another kind. And John was the main instigator of Alan coming in.
Chris and John came up to Eddie Offord's apartment and asked me to join the band. And I said, well, you know, there's a difference in styles, and basically we should each check each other out for 3 months, and which we did. And here I am 19 years later almost.
I learned an awful lot from, in a way, having to adjust to playing with Alan. So in a way, fortunately, it broadened my own experience.
Chris threatened to throw me out the window if I didn't join the band, number one. And secondly, as they were leaving, they said, oh, by the way, we have a gig in front of 10,000 people in 3 days' time. Can you learn all of the material?
Alan came in and just did an unbelievable job. I mean, I have to say, I mean, he's a totally diverse type of drummer, to totally opposite in every way, manner, fashion or form. And came in and played the pieces in his own style.
I think it was one rehearsal before we actually went on stage. And to play things like Heart of the Sunrise and all of that kind of material at that time was very challenging, but everything seemed to work.
Fragile, Close to the Edge, and halfway into Topographic Oceans, things started to change. I think Topographic Oceans was a sort of meeting point of high ideals and low energy.
When this idea of a few songs suddenly started to become bigger and bigger into Topographic Oceans, it daunted the other guys in the band. They said, well, you know, I think it was Rick was most unsure whether this was a good idea. Double album, 4 songs.
In the middle of it all, there was me really trying to